This is Rick Rule for the Vancouver Natural Resources Investment Symposium, the virtual edition, 2021. Delighted today to welcome back a man who, despite his young age, has been a friend of this conference and a friend of investors for almost 2 decades, Mr. Shawn Wallace. I first came into contact with Mr. Wallace when he worked for the hugely successful Hunter and Dickinson group. He subsequently left and formed a business relationship with Ivan Bebic, who we have also interviewed. Shawn, I'd like at the beginning of the interview to have you give our audience a bit of an overview of the successes that you enjoyed and the lessons that you learned at Hunter and Dickinson, and then the two prior exploration monetization successes that you and Ivan enjoyed subsequent to your leaving Hunter and Dickinson.
Sure. Thanks, Rick. I was very, very fortunate early in my career to work at Hunter Dickinson. This was a great group that was very comprehensive. They had all the disciplines covered off in-house. And so I was able to be exposed to and learn from and be mentored by, fantastic people like David Jennings, who I know you know well, bless him, and all the other guys, Bob Hunter and Bob Dickinson, et cetera. And I couldn't have landed at a better place in terms of being able to learn about, taking an idea all the way to monetizing it through a transaction, or ultimately they ended up expanding their capabilities at Hunter Dickinson while I was there, and they ended up operating mines. So sort of the, beginning to end of the cycle, and we did it several times. Some of the big successes we had were Mount Milligan, which is a mine. That was also a transaction. So the shareholders of Hunter Dickinson's company, I think it was Continental Gold, did quite well on that. Camas became a mine. Farallon mine, that was a zinc project down in Mexico, which I know we're well familiar with too, Rick. It just went so on and so forth. But then Hunter Dickinson grew to be quite large, and they started getting into more of the production side of things. And I was more passionate about the exploration, having began my career in the field as an actual explorationist at the tender age of 18. So that was 33 years ago now. And, it's been a long, good ride. And so as I segue into why Ivan and I came together and why we're doing what we're doing, is we both had a real passion for the part of the food chain that I think we occupy quite well, which is the sort of early to later stage exploration, to making that discovery, to moving it along the track towards the engineering zone, and hopefully at that point having some sort of accretive premium, hopefully a transaction with a larger entity, or as we did with Keegan, bring in, because there was no transaction to be had despite our best efforts, but we did have a deposit of merit. We recruited an operating team out of the UK, out of Johannesburg, and that is now called Galliano Gold, and they're producing about 425,000 ounces per annum. Our other exit, Caden Resources, was another one of our monetizing successes. We barely had put out a maiden resource on it, and Agnico Eagle decided they liked it enough that they wanted to pay us a nice premium for it, and off we went. And that was very fortunate for us to get us to where we are today, because we kind of had that transaction, that liquidity event, at a time where investors weren't really being afforded that many places, as the cycle was quite on a downturn at that point. So that left us quite invigorated, had a win, and we were able to formulate some new companies, which is Oren, which is now split into Fury Gold Mines, Sombrero Silver, and Sombrero Copper, which is, I think, a pending monetization for everybody, but we'll see what happens. I'm very positive about it. And we built Torque Resources on the back of that, and we were able to finance the company as a shell, but at a nice premium. That allowed us to go out and purchase assets. And one of my mentors, Ron Thiessen, always said, we always get all the credit for how well we sell our assets. He says, but people don't get it. It's actually how you buy is what we should be credited for, and that's what you really want to be good at. So we have a very disciplined sort of approach to how we make acquisitions. We have a formula that we use in-house, and how we decide if it's something that's worth taking a risk on, because these are risky endeavors, and it's gone quite well.
One of the hallmarks of Hunter Dickinson was, of course, highly qualified technical teams, and you and Ivan have continued that tradition. If you could briefly brag on some of the scientists that you've brought in place and how they add value for your shareholders.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very fortunate over the entire tenure of our partnership thus far. And we started off with a guy, Dan McCoy, and so we went to Africa, and we used, and frankly, one of my Hunter Dickinson mates, Richard Haslinger, joined us on that endeavor. And, again, only the highest technical standards. And as the group evolved and as we became more successful, it attracts that sort of technical talent. And along came Michael Henriksen and of Newmont ilk, and he was a global geologist for Newmont, and they would send him around to their mines, and his job was always to find more gold. Let's keep these mines going. So he's got a real eye for what economic mineralization looks like, what it needs to look like, what's worth taking the risk on, what's that very dear capital, where do you expend that? And it's very important to, it's an overused adage, but the Italian tailor, we don't measure twice, we measure 4 times before we cut, before we drill those drill holes that, as Ron Thiessen always called it, the terrible truth machine goes out there and tells you what you actually have. And fortunately for us, that machine's been kind to us.
So tell us something about what the terrible truth machine is going to do at Torque. What's the investment proposition? How do you guys bring value to shareholders? This time?
I guess I'll start off with a little bit about what Torque's doing. Then I'll tell you how the machine can help us. So we are believers in the copper space. We like copper gold projects, and a lot of the projects that I mentioned earlier from my previous life at Hunter Dickinson were big bulk tonnage copper gold projects, and I really enjoyed working on projects like that. They're familiar to me. I know what they look like. I've had great success with them. It's always nice to do something that you had success at previously, and for your shareholders as well. It creates a good energy around it. So I was really excited when I got buy-in from my other partners to do Torque as a focused on Chile, a country I've always wanted to work in, and to work in the bulk tonnage copper gold space. So thus far, we've acquired 2 projects, the Margarita project and the Andrea project. They're both nice, straightforward, big bulk tonnage projects with great with copper mineralization all over the project. So there's no question whether we're going to drill copper on these 2 projects, but it's going to be just a matter of if the grade's going to be good enough and the dimensions are going to be robust enough to create the kind of project that will someday attract a premium from a major mining company.
Obviously, the selection of Chile, if you're in the copper business, makes sense. The country produces about a third, as I understand it, of the world's copper production. Certainly, Chile has been good to me. What were the hallmarks of these properties that caused you to select them relative to other things that might have been available in Chile?
Well, the bottom line is there's very few things available in Chile, and we sort of had to pivot a little bit. And I don't want to, we talk about this everyone talks about this too much, but because of COVID, we had to pivot a little bit, and we had to, because we have such a strict, disciplined way of doing things, we had to find like-minded people in a country because we couldn't send our technical people that travel there to do it. So a gentleman by the name of Waldo Quadra joined us and his entire team, and they actually came to us as finders on one of the assets we were negotiating for previously. And we liked them so much, we said, well, why don't you just join us? And so they've done that. And ever since then, the types of projects have been coming to us, and they're coming to us in the most interesting ways. They're coming from wealthy families held in Priveco. So these are not projects that have been sort of handed off amongst the Vancouver junior crowd, and we're just the latest iteration thereof. These are genuine, fresh projects for everyone, and I think that I like that about it. It's quite exciting to me. Is we have a chance to do something actually new here. But the hallmarks of them are that they have to be located somewhere where you can work. In other words, at an altitude that's workable. For instance, the Andrea project is only 100 kilometers from a large center. It's very close, on trend with a number of mines. It's right in that Miocene belt where all the great granddaddy projects are. And so it's got everything. It's got the right signatures. It's got the right geology. It's got the right address. It's got infrastructure close by. These are all things that are really important to us. It's not underneath the community. So the social political atmosphere there and the environmental impact, excuse me, are all things that we find that will be quite manageable, that we'll be able to be accretive to all stakeholders as well as shareholders.
Shawn, we've told our investors and our partners over time that exploration is really a process of answering unanswered questions. So, can you describe the process in the next 12 months for answering unanswered questions involving these two projects? I'm not speaking necessarily just to news flow. I'm talking more about adding value to the projects, although certainly news flow is important to traders.
Yeah, so I think thankfully we'll be drilling, so that has its own cycle of news flow. And because we're in a place like Chile with good labs and so forth, I do believe that and there aren't a lot of people actively juniors exploring right now. I think we've sort of sussed it out, and we've seen that we'll be able to get results, a good return on results, if you will. So the questions, frankly, for both these projects are the only questions I want answered, which is there an economic deposit there? We know there's copper there, but do our technical theories carry into the depths of the earth, which is the drill machine will tell us that. We're using IP surveys to answer the question of where we should drill, and then we'll use the drill to figure out what of these signatures provides us with the right answer, which is big widths of economic mineralization. Our goal is to find something at least 500 million tons. Anything smaller than that, unless the grade's just off the charts, but that would involve a fair bit of luck. You got to kind of go with what's the average grades of these kind of deposits. Okay, how big do they need to be to make sense? And our goal is 500 million tons or bigger is something that we believe would be. So that's the kind of swings we're trying to take. So a project doesn't show that it has the space or the ability to provide that to us, then we probably wouldn't be interested in exploring it.
And just to be sure, the grade target you're talking about is about 0.5%. The sort
Well,
of
0.5%
median
would make. I
porphyry
think
grade.
now yeah, you mean I guess if a gold copper combined,
Yep.
depending. Again, what's the strip? It's hard. I never really like to tie myself to absolutes. Like it must be this grade, but if
Right.
your strips off the chart, you're going to need better grade. If and what's your metallurgy and all this sort of thing. Fortunately, we're not probably going to have to reinvent anything in a country like Chile where it's all been done before.
Now, I think that's an important point. I've been an investor in Chile for 40 years, and it's nice to be in a place where the whole economic culture is mining centric. It's also nice to be in a place where no matter where you are in the country, you're within 120 miles, or pardon me, kilometers of a port. And I think people who are used to the United States and Canada underestimate the incredible amount of infrastructure, mining specific infrastructure, but general infrastructure too, power and roads in Chile. So I'm personally, as a Torque shareholder, delighted by your choice to focus
Oh,
in a
good.
company, pardon me, in a country that's treated me so kindly over 40 years.
Yeah,
Perhaps,
I know. Certainly, that's our experience. Sorry to interrupt.
great. No problem. It's what I'd like you to do in the brief time we have left is explain to people how and why they should reach you, where they can talk to you,
Yeah, I
what your
think the best way
contact.
is to come through our website, all the www.torqueresources.com. We will be, we'd like everyone to come by our booth and talk to us over the course of the conference. We're really looking forward to engaging with people. We love that as a group. We like to get out and meet shareholders. Nowadays, we're doing it this way more than the other way, but we're optimistic that soon we'll be meeting in person again. And I really enjoy interacting with the various shareholders in mining. I find they're usually pretty educated with it because it's complicated, and they need to be, or they have a passion about it. It's funny how people have a connection to mining. For all sorts of crazy different reasons. I get the funniest stories. It's really enriched my life to meet all these people. But, the best way is through our website. All our phone numbers are there, and you can ask for me directly. I'm always happy to field calls from shareholders. Natasha is also someone who would be happy to speak with anyone, and Michael Koswan as well, our president and CEO. So all of us have a real passion for getting out there and telling our story and for what we're doing right now. And we really look forward to having this unfold over the next 12 to 24 months. I think are going to be quite exciting.
Well, Shawn, thank you for your many years of contribution to, frankly, shareholder wealth. And thank you, too, for your ongoing sponsorship of the Vancouver Natural Resources Investment Symposium. We're delighted to have you with us this year. We look forward to having you back next year to find out what you've accomplished for us. Thanks again.